Which of us knows what looms ahead in the next 5 years here? What lies ahead for us? I want to talk about 4 or 5 very important things that I think we need to be involved in, and that is this. As you look at the platforms before us politically, I ask one question, then 2, then 3, then 4. What is the most valuable thing in the world? What is the most valuable thing in the world? Winston Churchill said it, the most valuable thing in the world is the truth. He said, in fact, it is so valuable that often it is hidden by a bodyguard of lies. Natan Sharansky, former Israeli justice minister, when he was incarcerated in his former Soviet Union, made this comment when he went to visit the prison where he'd been incarcerated, and then asked if he could go and lay a wreath at the grave of Sakharov, the physicist who gave to the Soviets the atomic bomb. Here's what he said. The most powerful weapon in the world, said Sakharov, is not the bomb that I've given to you all. He said the most powerful weapon in the world is the truth. If the most valuable thing in the world is the truth, and the most powerful weapon in the world is the truth, how important is the truth on the platforms of this electoral process? If the truth does not survive, you may as well turn the lights out, because to somebody whose mind is bent towards deceit and a lie, the darkness becomes the light. Yes. That's right. You may as well turn the lights out then. Truth is an imperative, so critical in our times. And we as the church need to rise up for 2 reasons: that we demand of the electoral process that truth be spoken and truthfulness be that by which the politicians live, A. And then we ourselves as Christian leaders, as men and women, live by the truth. Because if we abide in His word, then we know the truth, and then the truth indeed sets us free. And now as Christians, the time has come for us to ask of the political leadership truth, because without truth we lose the most powerful weapon. Without truth we lose the most valuable thing, and we live that by example in our own lives. Truthfulness, truth number 1. Number 2, I say this: what is the fundamental law of logic? There are 3 laws of logic, and I just give you the first law. On this hangs everything else. It may seem terribly cerebral, but believe me, it is immensely practical. The most fundamental law of logic is the law of identity. You must be able to identify what it is you're talking about, or you cannot speak anything about that thing. The law of identity. Then you move on to the law of rational inference, the law of non-contradiction, and so on. But the law of identity is key. Now, here's what I want to say to you. If we as a nation cannot even identify those who are seeking to destroy us, then we've not only violated the fundamental law of ethics, truth, we're now violating the fundamental law of reason. The law of identity is that which demands of us that we know what it is we're really talking about. It is critical we as Christians come together and pray that our political leadership will be able to identify what it is that is really seeking to threaten us, especially since ideologies abound, both within and without, that seem to want to pull down the infrastructure. The third thing, what I want to talk about, is a wall that we don't hear much about. We hear much about many walls these days. Is the wall of religious liberty going to be taken away, going to be put around the church, so that we will be hamstrung, that we will be handcuffed, that our freedoms will be taken away from us? If you and I don't stand up and speak with love and speak with concern, the day will come, as Margaret Thatcher warned us, that if the church does not rise up and speak, the political structure will collapse. Now, we've got truth, we've got the law of identity, we've got the religious freedom principle. Why is that critical? I'll tell you why it's critical. We talk about ourselves being as a people of laws, that this nation is a nation of laws. I hear that again and again and again. We are a nation of laws, all right? We're a nation of laws. And if you read Russell Kirk, The Roots of American Order, and so on, he'll talk about us being a nation of laws. So we've got the root is the laws. The trunk is the political infrastructure. The branches is the outworking and culture, okay? You've got the roots, the laws, the trunk, the political structure, the branches, the outworking and culture. Here's my question. What is going to hold the roots? The roots don't hold themselves. You need a rich moral soil. That rich moral soil is needed to hold the roots. And for that rich moral soil, the voice of the Christian has to be heard, because the greatest commandment given to mankind ever was not one, but it was two: to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Moses had given 613 commandments. Jesus could have reduced it to one. He didn't. He reduced it to two. That be the vertical dimension and then the horizontal dimension. All we hear in politics today is right and left. We've forgotten there's an up and a down. And if we forget there's an up and a down, we'll be choking each other from the right to the left or the left to the right. That's why Jesus never got messed up in that battle, because his kingdom was from another world. His kingdom was vertical. As Solomon said, everything is pointless and emptiness if it's under the sun. If you lock God out, it's all empty and all purposeless, and you are chasing after the wind. You've got the ethical norms that are needed. You've got the logical reality that is needed. You've got the freedom to which God calls us and the moral reasoning to which we must be committed. Gertrude Himmelfarb from Columbia has written a book called Roads to Modernity. Here's this brilliant philosopher who takes one whole chapter of all things to say why America was different to Europe, why America was different to France. And she says America was different because for the French philosophers, for their philosophers, reason was supreme. She says for the American, moral reasoning was supreme. It's an incredible statement made by a very profound thinker. It's not reason with its feet firmly planted in midair, but it's moral reasoning, the distinction between right and wrong, good and evil, which is exactly what Alexander Solzhenitsyn warned us about, the moral reasoning that is needed. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I say to you, your life and my life must show that. If I don't honor my commitment to my family, if I don't honor my commitment to my colleagues, if I don't honor my commitment to what God himself has called me to, it'll all be once again like chasing after the wind. We need that moral strength, that deep-seated commitment of the soul, so that men and women can look at us and recognize there's a man or a woman whose yea is yea and whose nay is nay, because they are rooted in the bedrock of the unchangeable one, God himself. We must get that straight. And lastly, I've seen this globe a lot. I traveled over 200 days every year. It's been a torturous, torturous schedule. And I keep asking myself, when am I going to slow down? Got a beautiful wife, children, grandchildren. And I'll tell you what, there's not another cause in the world for which I'd be traveling like this, but for my Lord, because outside of his transforming power, there is no other hope for mankind. As Konrad Adenauer said to Billy Graham years ago, looking through the window into the broken city of Cologne, he looked at Billy and he said, "Mr. Graham, do you believe Jesus really rose again from the dead?" Billy Graham said, "If I didn't believe that, Mr. Chancellor, I would have no message left to preach." He said, Adenauer paused, looked out of the window, came back, and he said, "Mr. Graham, outside of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, I know of no other hope for mankind." Billy Graham said, "I've never forgotten that. Outside of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, I know of no other hope for mankind, not the least of which is the reality that justice will finally hold sway." And so the question I ask is, what does the political landscape hold for us? And I console myself with this. It was not Pharaoh that made the difference. It was Joseph in Pharaoh's palace. It was not the Persian monarch that made the difference. It was Daniel who was able to talk to the Persian monarch. It's amazing. You know, the fact of the matter is, it is those who come close, those who stand close to the leader. And my prayer is that that person will be elected who will have the voice of godly people around them. We need the Josephs, the Nehemiahs, the Daniels that they will appoint. They are the ones who have the ear of the king. And so no matter what happens, my prayer is that the Daniels, the Josephs, and the Esthers will emerge, and those voices can change history. A grandson can change the life of a grandfather, and a voice of a cupbearer can change the heart of a monarch. So my prayer is, God, raise up those kinds of people to be in the palace, to be in these precincts, and be in those quarters. That should be our prayer. Because you see, if you don't have the voice of a righteous one, you get intoxicated with your own knowledge and your own understanding and drunk with your own power, and you run roughshod over humanity like Rehoboam did. We can't have that. We need the voices. And so I bring this to a close very, very much parenthetically, one end starting off with Syria, and now this end from Jerusalem. Some time ago, I was talking to a Muslim cleric, very powerful man, who was quite hostile, quite angry. And I'd asked him a question, and his answer was not very comforting to me. So I said to him, you know what? I don't like your answer. I said, but I want to tell you something. Where we are sitting, not far from here, is a hill. 5,000 years ago, a man by the name of Abraham took his son up that hill. I said, please, sir, let's not debate which son right now, because that's not the point. I said, he took his son up the hill and was going to sacrifice him as an expression of faith and go before God. He said, I remember the story. I said, but as the axe is about to come down, God stops that arm. He said, that's right. I said, what did God say? He didn't have the answer. God said, stop. I, myself, will provide. He said, that's right. I said, very close to where you and I are sitting, Sheikh, is a hill. 2,000 years ago, God took his own son up that hill. And this time, the axe did not stop. He just stared at me. I said, Sheikh, until you and I receive the son God has provided, we'll be offering our own sons and daughters on the battlefields of this world for land and position and power and prestige. He just stared at me. And when we left, he turned me around before I got into the car, gave me a kiss on both sides of the face, and he said, Mr. Zacharias, you're a good man. You're a good man. He said, I hope I see you again someday. We're not going to win people by mocking them. We're not going to win people by deriding them. We've got to present the winsomeness and the beauty of the message that God would have us share. People are drawn to the beauty and the love of what they so long for. And ladies and gentlemen, that's your calling and mine. Unarmed truth and unconditional love on the one side, the cross on a hill called Calvary as the point from which we all begin. The days of Jesus were dark, but Saul of Tarsus to Paul changed history. Is it impossible for that to happen in our time? I think not. It could take one person to change the future. You're here to be counted among those people. I pray that a few years from now we'll look back and say, God surprised us all, and we have a triumph and a glorious message to give. 10 years ago, nobody would have ever thought China would be the fastest growing church in the world. 10 years from now, we might want to look back and say, who would have ever thought America would once again be strong as a people of faith and spread the word of God richly and be taken because of their strength of character, courage, born out of the roots of the moral soil of loving God and loving our fellow man. That's my challenge for you. Thank you so much for giving me a hearing, and God bless you.